When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
Making life more affordable for people. What are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
They can just get their foot in the door to be able to then engage in what will prove to be their opportunity to build intergenerational wealth. And here's my personal experience coming at that. I grew up a middle-class kid.
Shut up!
What's going on, guys? We got to talk about this disastrous NABJ interview that Kamala Harris conducted. Okay, this is the National Association of Black Journalists, where there was this big controversy surrounding Donald Trump. Since this clip, to me, is extremely funny, I'm gonna go ahead and play it again for you guys. Take a look.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
Give me
a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of
Sir,
that.
I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She has always identified as a Black woman. She went to a historically Black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear.
Right, so this is how they pose questions to Trump. You're an evil human being, Trump. You're the worst scum of the earth. You're extremely racist. So how do you reconcile that with the fact that you want Black people to vote for you? That's the stupid question that they asked. Of course, Trump didn't take well to it, and then you saw the inevitable result. Okay, now Kamala Harris was apparently supposed to be there, but her handlers forced her not to show up originally. Now she is there, and she's well prepped, much more better prepared. She was in the time chamber, the hyperbolic time chamber, getting her training up so she could be ready to face the world and continually regurgitate the same talking points that she levied during the debate against Donald Trump. Okay, so here's the only problem. She didn't prepare enough, because all her answers are stupid. They're terrible, and anytime they ask her anything that's off kilter or a follow-up, which respectfully the NABJ folks did, it was still softball, but they did ask some follow-ups. It kind of reminded me of the whole Dana Trash interview on CNN, something like that, maybe a little bit tougher. I don't know. You guys will have to be the judge. But she bombed the hell out of those answers. She bombed the hell out of those answers. Let's get into it.
Madam Vice President, thank you so much for doing this and making the time.
Of course.
Just a little bit busy right now. We want to start on an issue that Americans across the country say is their number one concern, and that's the economy. Mm-hmm. A question that has been asked of you and everybody that's on the Democratic side is whether or not voters are better off now than they were 4 years ago. Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
4 years ago, when we came in during the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Here we go.
And a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president. As it relates to COVID, and obviously January 6th. And we had then a lot of work to do to clean up a mess. As of today, we have created...
If that's the case, then how come the economy got worse after you took office? Inflation skyrocketed. Inflation was at 1.4%. Then it went up to close to 10%. That's ridiculous. What does that have to do with Donald Trump?
And so my plan for the economy includes what I imagine and believe and call an opportunity economy. What we can do to grow an opportunity economy where all people have access to the resources to compete, to apply.
Kamala didn't give an answer. Next question.
Madam Vice President, I want to move to Springfield, Ohio, and what's happening there. We've seen school closures, parents worried about their kids leaving the home because of racist conspiracy theories that I won't repeat here, but they have been repeated by leaders on the Republican side, President Trump, former President Trump, and Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance. From your perspective, is this just a case of irredeemable racism that can't be mitigated by any rational action, or is this a situation in which a federal response could help this community heal? There's a question of resources and...
Well, no, I'll let you finish and then I'll speak.
No, please.
It's a crying shame. I mean, my heart breaks for this community. You know, there were children, elementary school children, who it was school photo day. You remember what that's like? Going to school on picture day? Who were dressed up in their best, got all ready, knew what they were going to wear the night before.
What?
Madam Vice President, I'm switching gears again.
Okay.
Quick question. I want to talk to you about gun control. So you've said you support an assault weapons ban and universal background checks, and we actually learned during the debate that you are a gun owner. But in cities like Philadelphia, handguns are responsible for most homicides and violent crime. The most recent FBI data shows handguns were involved in 59% of murders in our country. How will you address the issue of the use of handguns? Because a push for an assault weapons ban only addresses a significant but small part of the problem.
She hadn't thought that far ahead. She probably doesn't even know, because a lot of people in the Democrat Party don't know facts, but she probably doesn't even know that handguns make up the majority of guns. So good luck getting an answer from her about this one.
So, first of all, yes, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz is a gun owner, and we're not trying to take anybody's guns away from them.
False.
But we do need an assault weapons ban. Assault weapons.
You supported a mandatory buyback in the past, which is taking people's guns from them.
What would you do about the millions of, specifically, assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way.
Are designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly, and have no place, I'm going to get to it.
Yes.
And have no place on the streets of a civil society. We need universal background checks, which, to your point about handguns, is about saying that it is just reasonable to want reasonable gun safety laws that say we should do background checks that we ought to know. It's just reasonable. You might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon. If they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others, you might just want to know.
And respectfully, we do understand that.
But you're asking
yes.
about...
I'm asking specifically about handguns, because many of those handguns aren't purchased in places.
Universal background checks apply to handguns.
Yes.
They do.
But in many instances, those handguns aren't even bought lawfully. Yes.
Which is why I also have been very adamant for years. In fact, I myself protested at a gun show probably 10, 15 years ago about the gun show loophole and why we need to close that. Because what ends up happening...
That's not... You think people going to a gun show and buying handguns? That's just... Kamala, come on, bro.
Happening is that gun shows at flea markets, gun dealers are not, under existing law in the past, required to register their sales. And so you are exactly right that a lot of homicides, for example, a good number of them, I don't have the statistic in front of my mind, are committed with illegally purchased guns. And that's why we need to address each entry point in the issue, including universal background checks, closing the gun show loophole, and what we need to do as a general matter to focus not only on reaction to crime, but prevention of crime. So you're raising a very important issue that has many facets, including what we need to do in terms of reasonable gun safety laws, and what we need to do around crime prevention, what we need to do around crime deterrence. But
Kamala Harris is never specific. Like, universal background checks, like that happens. Y'all know in most places they already do background checks, right? So universal, I'm not exactly sure what that means, what that contributes. As for the gun show thing, handguns ain't what you going to a gun show for. I'm sorry, Kamala. It's just not it.
You've said that as president, you would want to codify Roe. If it came to your desk, you would sign a bill that did that. Roe protected access until fetal viability, which it also says is, quote, at about 7 months, but it may occur earlier, even at 24 weeks. So do you similarly support also codifying Roe's restrictions, which allowed states to ban abortion in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy unless necessary to save the mother's life?
Wait for it.
we need to put the protections of Roe v. Wade back into law. And when that bill gets passed by Congress, I will proudly sign it into law. Understand what is happening in our country. Over 20 states have passed what I call Trump abortion bans, because I understand how we got here. The former president handpicked 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. They did as he intended, and in state after state, laws have been passed criminalizing healthcare providers. I don't know if anyone here has heard most recently the stories out of Georgia. Tragic story about a young woman who died because it appears the people who should have given her health care were afraid they'd be criminalized after the Dobbs decision came down. Laws that make no exception even for or incest, which means that you're telling a survivor of a crime.
I don't know exactly what Kamala's talking about, but I live in Georgia, and Georgia is definitely not one of those places. There's exception for rape, incest, and life of the mother. Unfortunately, you do end up running into people who've gotten abortions, and yes, they will absolutely do any of those exceptions, and even without exceptions as well, if you catch the fetus early enough.
Crime of a violation to their body, that they have no right to make a decision about what happens to their body next, which is immoral. An approach that doesn't take into account that most people, I think, agree you don't have to abandon your faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body. If she chooses, she will talk with her pastor, her priest, her rabbi, her imam, but it should not be the government or Donald Trump telling her what to do about her own body and her life. So that's where I stand. We need to put back in place the protection of Roe v. Wade and put that into law.
And those restrictions that are also in.
We need to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade and let an individual, in consultation with her doctor, make the decision based on what she can determine, because she's smart enough to know what's in her best interest instead of having her government tell her what to do.
So basically, Kamala Harris refuses to answer whether or not abortion within the 7th, 8th, and 9th month is allowable. Same thing she did at the debate. She dodged the question.
Joyful warrior has been used to describe your campaign.
You didn't see that just a minute ago, though. Okay, I'm back to my joyful part.
And your opponent and Republicans have at times weaponized you laughing in campaign ads, for example. Why is joy important to you to insert into this election? And what do you make of Republicans using that as a way to suggest that you're not a serious candidate?
Well, sometimes I think, and I'll say to whoever the young people are who are watching this, there are some times when your adversaries will try and turn your strength into a weakness. Don't you let them. Don't you let them. I find joy in the American people. I find joy and optimism in what I see to be our future and our ability to invest in it.
What a waste of time. Kamala Harris keeps getting asked the same questions, and she dodges them every time. Okay, like this lady is the equivalent of Neo from the Matrix, or Trinity, except don't look near as good. Okay, because she dodges questions. She's demonstrated that either she doesn't know how firearms work, or she doesn't care and just uses them as a talking point. We need to do the assault weapons ban. She keeps saying the same thing. They pointed out the handgun. She didn't have anything to say. Okay, she fumbled the ball on that. They talked about Roe and abortion up to the 9th month. She refused to answer. She said what Donald Trump said was false about people aborting babies at the 9th month, which absolutely is not false, and after birth, which is not false. These are things that are actually true. And Kamala Harris, when asked about it, she doesn't have an answer. And then the whole thing about the kids on picture day was just like the weirdest answer. Maybe it could have been okay if she would have delivered. It was like the delivery was just horrendous. It was just very awkward. She took too damn long to get the words out. It seemed like she was trying to think really hard before she said anything, and it just came across extremely cringeworthy. But those are just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that they went easier on Kamala? For crying out loud, they asked her questions about her joyfulness and her cackle. Do you guys think this was a serious attempt to press Kamala for answers? Give her the squeeze, and not in the way she, shout out to Willie Brown. But do you guys think that these guys were tough at NABJ, or were they just throwing her lobs like Steve Harvey said he would do? Because to me, most of these questions seem like they were pretty straightforward. These are questions that they definitely should ask, like, hey, are Americans really better off? I feel like if you got to ask that question, then you really already lost. If you got to ask the question, hey, are you sure Americans are better off? We know that the answer is no. Everybody knows the answer is no. America, the only way they can say America's better off is they're like, well, I really hated Trump, so I'm happy that he wasn't in office, but that's about it, because you're not better off economically, you're not better off in terms of safety, and it's like, if those two things aren't in place, then what the hell else do you even have besides Orange Man Bad, and we saved the world from Hitler, neo-Nazi, fascist, whatever the hell nonsense they want to call them, where they're almost getting this man killed. I think we've all got a confirmation. So we all suspected it, but we got a confirmation of why they did not want to put Kamala Harris on full display, right? So some people might think Kamala Harris is awesome. They might love her personality, but I do think in general, she pretty objectively doesn't have that likable of a personality. She comes across as fake and disingenuous. She doesn't answer questions. She dodges, she hides. And then when she comes out, she comes across as fake and disingenuous. So it's like, does she come out more? Does she hide? In my opinion, even though it's very unpleasant to have to watch her on the television and make these videos about her, I do think that Kamala Harris is better off as a campaign strategy to just reveal yourself so people don't feel like they're voting for a complete stranger. However, do I think that she could potentially lose votes for revealing herself more? That's also true. In terms of which one hurts her more, who the hell knows? But either way, I think at least she's finally coming out, even if her answers suck donkey balls. I do think at least it's good that she's finally coming out from up under the bed. Okay, Kamala, stop hiding. Okay, I'm glad you got a little bit of balls. You grew some balls. Okay, the balls finally dropped after going into purgatory, locking yourself in a basement to do your debate training. I personally believe that this election's in the bag. Sure, a tight race, but I believe that the writing is on the wall. People don't trust Kamala. They don't like Kamala. That's why she's coming out and doing a lot of these interviews. That's why she finally updated her website with some sort of policy positions. It's half-baked as hell, but it's there. You know, that's why she wanted another debate with Donald Trump, because they know that the curtain's closing, the walls are closing in, and the ceiling's coming down, and she's not Indiana Jones. She's just going to get skewered and crushed, and that's going to be the end of Kamala Harris. Joe Biden destroyed Kamala Harris's chances of ever becoming president by ruining everything and then handing it right over to her. Like, it couldn't be more glorious. He said, you want to be president so damn bad? Well, take this mess and fix it. And Kamala Harris, unfortunately, is not going to be able to do it. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I appreciate y'all watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I'm out.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?